"Captain Ames, we need you up front now." The intercom crackled, slicing through the cabin's hum. 147 passengers looked up. Something was wrong in seat 2 amperes. Very wrong. Jessica Martinez gripped the service napkin like a badge of authority. "Sir, this seat is reserved for verified first-class passengers only. You'll need to move." The black man in the midnight suit didn't flinch, didn't argue, didn't blink. He simply checked his Patek Philippe, calm as gravity itself. "Captain Ames is on his way," Jessica warned. "You're holding up this entire flight." The man smiled, a slow, deliberate smile that made her chest tighten. "I know." His phone buzzed. A message from corporate legal team. "Everything ready, Mr. Carter. Proceed when you're ready." The stories we tell ourselves about who belongs and who doesn't, and the moments that shatter them. These are black stories that change boardrooms, redefine power, and expose the assumptions hiding behind polite smiles. Have you ever underestimated someone so completely that it cost you your career? "Sir," the flight attendant says, and the "sir" lands like an accusation. Her badge reads Jessica M. The corners of her smile are stapled in place. "I need to see your boarding pass again." She holds out a palm wrapped in a white service napkin as if the paper could sanitize what she's about to do. The man in 2 amperes, Miles Carter, hands it to her without looking up. The pass sits in her fingers like something suspiciously light. She studies it, flips it once, twice, like there must be a trick in the cardstock. "This is a first-class seat," she says, softer now, as if the seat number might have changed since she read it a second ago. "Do you have photo ID?" He opens a leather wallet, places a driver's license and a metal credit card on the tray, then folds his hands. Old world courtesy, new world tension. The card eats the cabin light. Someone in 2D inhales sharply. "I'm not seeing a matching middle initial in our system," Jessica says. Her tone rehearses calm and lands on condescension. "It's probably a glitch. Do you mind moving to premium economy while we sort it out? We're about to push." Phones tilt upward like flowers turning to the Sunday. In 4 amperes, a teenager starts a live stream and whispers, "First-class drama, y'all." In 1C, a man in a pale suit checks a watch with an accent and mutters about connections. The overhead bins thud shut, one by one, like a countdown you can hear, but can't stop. Miles looks at Jessica. "You have my boarding pass. You have my ID. I'm in 2 amperes. Her smile snaps. "Sir, people are waiting." "I know," he says. The syllables are steady as a surgeon's hands. He turns his watch crown half a click, like starting a timer only he can hear. An agent's voice pops onto the cabin speaker, syrup over ice. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard Flight 227 to Phoenix. We're showing an on-time departure of 12 minutes. The number hangs in the air. Useful and ominous." "Jessica?" A second attendant whispers, leaning in from the galley. "Op says we're green. We need the door." "He needs to move," Jessica whispers back, louder than she thinks. "I don't think..." She doesn't finish, but the cabin finishes for her. The aisle parts. A uniform with gold bars appears a compact storm walking on polished shoes. Captain Derek Ames doesn't break stride. 22 years of summer thunder and winter icing have taught him that the surest way through panic is a straight line. He kneels slightly, so his voice lands at eye level and authority at heart level. "Good afternoon," he says. "I'm Captain Ames. There seems to be a mix-up with your seat. May I see your documents?" Miles offers the license and card again. Ames takes them like evidence and glances at the boarding pass, the barcode, the ticket number that starts with a string. Only insiders ever notice. His eyes flicker, something aligns, then doesn't. "Everything appears in order," the captain says slowly. "It's not," Jessica says, standing straighter. He refused to show ID initially and became tense. Miles's hands remain folded. "I didn't refuse," he says. "You asked me to prove I belong up here." Ames's jaw tightens in the way men's jaws have tightened for centuries when they realize a decision will be replayed in rooms they don't control. He feels eyes on his epaulets, cameras on his face. He feels schedules tightening behind him, gates, crews, slotted airspace like Tetris. He also feels the silence of a man whose calm is not submission, but choice. "Sir," the captain says, professional to the bone, "for everyone's comfort, I'm asking you to step to premium economy while we confirm the discrepancy." "No," Miles says, and the word cuts the recycled air like a blade. A hush spreads. Even the AC seems to lower its voice. In 3D, a woman mouths, "Sue them," to her camera. In 6 amperes, an older man mutters, "Why does it always have to be a scene?" 6 kelvins. A heart emoji explodes, then 3 angry faces chase it. "Sir, if you don't comply, we'll have to deplane you," Jessica says, eyes flicking to the cockpit door like it's a panic button. "Jessica," Ames cautions. Not because she's wrong, but because the words are gasoline. Miles leans back. The crisp line of his cuff touches the armrest. His shoes are a quiet, expensive black. "Captain, before we escalate, a question." Ames doesn't like questions from passengers. They open trapdoors. "Go ahead. Are you familiar with 14 CFR section 121.58? Miles asks. Voice. Low. Precise. Interference with crew members. "I am," Ames says, surprised despite himself. "Good," Miles says. "Then you know it covers interference with safety duties, not a passenger sitting silently in his assigned seat." Someone exhales loud enough to be a comment. Jessica's chin lifts a millimeter. "He's splitting hairs," she says toward the forward galley, as if the cabin isn't listening. 10 minutes to departure. The gate agent chirps from the speaker, too cheerful by half. 2 airport police officers appear at the door as if conjured by the phrase non-compliant passenger. Their gear jingles with official promise. Their names, Kim and Rodriguez, flash on dark patches as they step into the aisle. "Captain?" Kim nods. Ames straightens. He hates this part. He hates the cameras worse. "What's the problem?" Rodriguez asks, scanning 2 amperes, assessing shoulders, angles, possibilities. Jessica points. "He won't move. He won't show proper ID." Miles, almost amused, taps the license and card still in the captain's hand. The teenager's chat scrolls so fast it's just color. "This is wild. He paid for that seat. Watch, they drag him. Don't blink." Ames feels the crew pulse around him, overtrained in safety, underskilled in grace. He hears ops in his headset. "We're past scheduled push. Need an update." He hears PR in his own head. "Cameras equals crisis." "Sir," Kim says, stepping into the row. Voice. Choosing firm over loud. "We'd like you to accompany us to the gate." Miles doesn't look at her badge, her belt, her hands. He looks at the captain. "Is that your directive?" Ames swallows. He wants to choose speed. He must choose right. He fails and chooses speed. "Yes, we'll handle this more comfortably off the aircraft." "No," Miles says again, and with the single syllable every phone leans closer. He turns his wrist. The second hand slides over a tiny 12. Jessica's patience snaps its last thread. "We don't have time for this," she says, the smile gone. The mask, a memory. People like. She stops, too late. The vowel already out in the air like a slur under construction. The cabin stiffens. 1C sits forward, or 3D whispers, "Say it." In 8 amperes, a mother squeezes her daughter's hand. Miles doesn't move. "Finish it." Jessica's flush climbs from collar to cheekbones. "People who game the system." She finishes. "Weak as decaf coffee. We see it all the time. Do you?" Miles asks. "Or do you just think you do?" "Captain." Ops hisses in Ames's ear. "Urgent now. We're seeing a live stream flag. Resolve quietly." In 2 amperes, silence flips to heat. The officers edge closer. Zip ties glint like prophecies. The businessman in 1C checks a non-existent email just to have something to do. The teenager's viewer count hits 7.3 kelvins. A comment floats up. Record everything. Last chance, Kim says. Stand up, sir. Miles's voice turns softer, which is worse. Officer Kim, Officer Rodriguez, before you lay a hand on me, ask a more useful question. What exactly have I done? Rodriguez shifts, impatient. You are interfering with what? Miles says. With the comfort of people who decided I don't belong where my ticket says I do? Ames feels the sentence like turbulence he can't climb above. He stood in cockpits while thunderstorms tried to peel the plane apart. This feels more complicated. It feels like weather he helped make. Captain, Jessica presses, you need to back your crew. Ames hears the truth hiding inside the sentence. Choose us over him. He also hears 50 phones, possibly 50,000 eyes, deciding whether he's a leader or a stereotype with stripes. 9 minutes. The cheerful speaker lies. Sir, Ames manages, and he hates that his voice carries a plea for everyone's sake. Miles's phone buzzes. He glances down. The screen shows a name that means nothing to the cabin and everything to him. He doesn't answer. He doesn't need to. The point is that the call came. Captain, Rodriguez says, reaching into the pocket where plastic restraints sleep. We're going to ask you to stand up one last time. Miles looks at Jessica. When did you decide my ID wasn't enough? She blinks. When you hesitated. I hesitated because your first question wasn't, may I see your pass? Miles says, voice flat. It was, are you sure you're in the right section? Jessica's mouth opens and closes. A small animal behind her ribs thrashes. Shame. 8 minutes. The PA chirps. Cursed metronome. A young woman in 3 amperes who's been silent until now clears her throat. I watched him bored, she says, shaky but brave. He came through with Group 1. Scanner beeped green. He didn't push anyone. He didn't. She stops when Jessica stares at her like mutiny. Captain? Ops breaks in again. Louder in Ames's earpiece. We're getting pings. Trending. Handle. Kim shifts her stance. The aisle's carpet prints her boot. Treads like evidence. Sir, please. Miles finally moves not to stand, but to reach, slow as time underwater, into the slim briefcase by his leg. Kim's hand twitches. So does Rodriguez's. Miles pauses to let them see the pause, then lifts out a leather portfolio the color of strong tea. Documentation you might find relevant, he says, laying it on the tray table with the casual precision of a man who's spent his life setting the table before the meal that changes everything. He opens it. Inside, embossed letterhead. A business card with a name engraved deep enough to feel. Captain, Jessica says, triumphant by reflex. This is absurd. He's making a show of it. He's making a record of it. Someone murmurs behind her. Ames takes the card because his fingers already remember its weight, the way metal remembers heat. His eyes touch the name and flicker again, recognition caught, then suppressed. He doesn't say what he sees. He can't. Not yet. He looks at Miles instead, and the man in 2 amperes meets his gaze with a calm that has nothing to do with patience and everything to do with power withheld. Captain. Ops says, one more notch tighter. Media requests incoming. Keep this off the jetway. 7 minutes. The PA lies again. In 2 amperes, Miles closes the portfolio as if closing an argument. You still want me to move? The cabin holds its breath. Phones hover. The engines hum a low, anticipatory note. Ames is a good man. He is also a man in a system that rewards speed and punishes doubt. He stands in the aisle with a choice that will feel simple later and is impossible now. Sir, he says, please. Miles's lips fold around a private smile. No triumph in it, only timing. He taps his watch crown one more time, then looks past the captain to the officers. "Before you restrain me for sitting in my seat," he says gently, "you might want to answer your radios." Their radios answer themselves. A crackle, then a voice no one at that door expects to hear on a day like this. The tone has money in it. The words have gravity. They fill the aisle like sudden weather. "Stand by," the voice says. "Do not proceed with passenger removal from 2 amperes. The phones jerk closer. 100 pupils dilating at once. Jessica goes very still, as if stillness can turn back minutes. The teenager's viewer count jumps again. 12.9 kelvins, 13.4 kelvins, the numbers climbing like an altimeter. Miles sits back, hands folded exactly where they began, and lets the room feel what he's known since he took 2 amperes without flinching. Stories like this end differently when the person in the seat brought more than a ticket onto the plane. 6 minutes. The PA pings, lying and somehow telling the truth. The captain looks down at the card again. His lips part around a name he doesn't say. The officers look at each other. Jessica looks at Miles, as if seeing him fully for the first time, and not liking what that reflection does to her own outline. Outside, ground crew latches the cargo hatch. Inside, the cabin waits, at the lip of a reveal. And for the first time since the intercom crackled, the plane is absolutely, perfectly quiet. The quiet is unbearable. You can hear it creak the weight of 147 strangers trying to guess what happens next. The radio on Captain Ames's shoulder hisses again, sharper this time. "Captain, ops here. Corporate is monitoring your flight feed. Repeat, corporate is watching. Do not proceed with removal." Jessica's mouth opens, then closes, like she's swallowed glass. "They're watching?" she whispers. "Already?" The teenager in 4 amperes whispers into her phone. "Oh my God," he said. Corporate's watching this live. "I think this dude's like, important." Her chat floods with hearts, fire emojis, and one comment that freezes Jessica's blood. He's someone powerful. They're done. Captain Ames looks down at the business card in his hand again. The name gleams in silver ink. Miles Carter, chairman of the board, Sovereign Airlines Holdings, the parent company that owns this very carrier. The realization knocks the breath out of him. Chairman, not executive, chairman. Jessica doesn't see the card, not yet. She's still locked in the theater of righteousness. "Captain, we can't let one passenger hold up the flight. It sets a precedent." Ames cuts her off. "Jessica, sit down." The words hit harder than they sound. Flight attendants aren't told to sit, not mid-boarding, not ever. Her jaw drops, eyes wide with disbelief. "Sir?" "Now," Ames says, voice steady but stripped of warmth. Jessica's knees bend before she decides to move. The entire cabin watches, recording the moment authority changes hands. 5 minutes to departure. The speaker hums, the most useless sentence in aviation history. Miles leans forward slightly. "Captain Ames, before this continues, perhaps you should take this call." Ames blinks. "What call?" As if on cue, his headset chirps again. He presses the side button. "Ames here." The voice that answers is velvet over steel. "Captain Ames, this is Patricia Watkins, Senior Vice President of Operations. I assume you've verified the passenger in seat 2 amperes? Yes, ma'am. I believe I have." "Good. Do not remove him. Do not touch his luggage. Do not question his credentials. You will continue the flight as scheduled. And upon arrival, you'll meet me directly at headquarters." "Yes, ma'am," he says, throat dry. "And, Captain?" The pause is deliberate, heavy. If a single video of this incident surfaces before we control the narrative, consider your career over. The line clicks dead. Ames lowers his headset slowly. Jessica stares, confused. What did she say? He doesn't answer her. Instead, he turns to the officers. Stand down. Rodriguez frowns. Sir, are you sure? We were told. I said stand down. The two officers exchange a look, then back away, the static from their radios trailing like embarrassment. Jessica's breath hitches. What is going on? She demands, her composure breaking into panic. He's manipulating you. He's threatening the airline. Look at him. Jessica, Ames says quietly. He is the airline. The sentence lands like turbulence. Murmurs ripple through the cabin. What did he say? Did he say he is the airline? Yo, this is wild. Someone screen record this. Jessica shakes her head violently. That's impossible. Board members don't fly commercial, they have jets. Miles finally speaks, calm as weather before a storm. Sometimes, I prefer to see the operation myself. The cameras drink it in the tone, the composure, the subtle cruelty of restraint. Ames looks like a man walking a tightrope over fire. Mr. Carter, he says carefully, on behalf of the crew, I deeply apologize for the misunderstanding. Will ensure. Miles raises a hand. No apologies yet, Captain. You'll want to save that for when we land. He turns to Jessica. His voice lowers, intimate, surgical. Miss Martinez, you said something a few minutes ago. Something about people who game the system. Her lips tremble. Sir, I didn't mean... Oh, you meant it. Miles interrupts, softly but firmly. You just didn't expect to be recorded saying it. The teenager's live stream chat explodes. Oh my God, he caught her. He's too calm. Justice, incoming. Jessica looks around desperately, realizing she's surrounded not by colleagues, but witnesses. The businessman in 1C, who once demanded silence, is now recording too. Captain, Miles continues, for the sake of transparency, I'd like you to make an announcement. Ames blinks. An announcement? Yes. Something simple. Miles leans back. Tell the passengers this flight will be temporarily delayed while you verify a security concern. The Severny. That'll cause panic. Ames protests. Miles's smile doesn't reach his eyes. Not nearly as much panic as the truth will cause later. Ames hesitates, but obeys. He steps to the intercom. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. We're experiencing a short operational delay while we verify a situation in first class. Please remain seated. We'll update you shortly. Phones tilt upward again. Another 100,000 viewers join online. Miles checks his watch. 4 minutes to departure, Captain. Shall we begin the verification? Jessica clutches her service manual like a shield. What does that mean? It means, Miles says, reaching again for his briefcase, we're going to determine exactly how deeply your assumptions run. He opens the case. Inside are printed documents stamped with the company's logo. He hands one to Ames. Read it. Ames takes the sheet, scanning line after line. His stomach turns cold. Is this? Yes, Miles says. That's the corporate audit I ordered last quarter. 43 passenger discrimination complaints filed against your crew division alone. Jessica's mouth drops open. That's not possible. It's not only possible, Miles replies. It's documented. The cabin murmurs again, louder this time. A woman in 2D whispers, oh my God, this is bigger than I thought. Miles continues, voice calm as a news anchor. Miss Martinez, you were personally named in 3 of those complaints. The company settled quietly. I approve the payouts myself. Jessica's legs buckle. She grabs the armrest. You're lying, she whispers. But there's no strength behind it. Miles doesn't respond. He doesn't need to. The silence confirms it for him. Captain, he says, eyes never leaving hers. How many of your flight crews have taken unconscious bias training in the past year? Ames feels the trap close. 2 sessions. Mandatory, Miles repeats. Yet somehow, here we are. The radio crackles again. Captain Ops, We're seeing real-time social media spikes. Number sovereign discrimination is trending number 4 nationwide. CEO wants eyes on that feed now. Ames's knuckles go white around the radio. Copy, he says, and every cell in his body screams we're finished. Miles folds his hands again. Captain Ames, you have 2 options. Continue this flight as if nothing happened, or acknowledge that something very much did. Ames looks at Jessica, who's now shaking uncontrollably. What do you want from me? Accountability, Miles says, for both of you. The businessman in 1C mutters, he's not wrong. Jessica's head snaps toward him. You don't understand, he's twisting this. But Miles interrupts again, this time, louder. Tell me, Miss Martinez, how many times have you questioned passengers like me? Passengers like you? She repeats, weakly, black, professional, quiet. She doesn't answer. He nods slowly. Exactly. The radio shrieks again. A new voice, this time older, smoother, commanding. This is CEO Jordan. Captain Ames, put me on speaker. Ames fumbles, pressing the intercom, so the voice fills the cabin. Ladies and gentlemen, the voice says, this is Robert Jordan, Chief Executive Officer of Sovereign Airlines. We're aware of a situation aboard Flight 227. We want to assure all passengers that it is being handled at the highest level of our organization. Gasps ripple through the rows. The teenager whispers, the CEO's on the line, no way. The voice continues, steel under velvet. Effective immediately. The crew involved in this incident is relieved of operational duties pending review. Jessica lets out a small cry. Wait, what? You can't? Miss Martinez, Jordan says, the sound of her name through the speaker chilling. You are hereby suspended until further notice. HR will meet you at the gate in Phoenix. She clutches her badge like it's oxygen. Captain Ames, Jordan adds, complete the flight. Mr. Carter remains on board. Upon arrival, corporate investigators will debrief you personally. Yes, sir, Ames croaks. The line clicks off. The cabin buzzes like a live wire. Jessica's voice is barely a whisper. He just fired me. Over the radio. Miles studies her. No, Miss Martinez. He suspended you. I'll decide if you're fired. Her eyes widen. You? He nods once. I told you. I am the airline. Outside, the last baggage cart pulls away. Inside, tension has nowhere left to go, but up. 3 minutes to departure. The PA announces, oblivious to the fact that departure has already happened. In reputation, in perception, in power. Captain Ames rubs his temples. Sir, please, what happens now? Miles's smile returns, faint and deliberate. Now, Captain, we fly. He leans back as the engines spool, the roar drowning out the cabin's stunned whispers. Cameras keep rolling. Hashtags multiply. And somewhere deep in the corporate cloud, a crisis management team watches their worst nightmare unfold live 1 minute at a time. 30,000 feet above Nevada, Flight 227 feels less like a plane and more like a courtroom hurtling through the sky. The seatbelt sign glows, not because of turbulence, but because nobody trusts what freedom might do next. The hum of engines becomes a soundtrack to silence. Jessica sits in 2B now, pale and shaking. Captain Ames remains in the cockpit, though every few minutes he glances back through the door, haunted by the knowledge that the story of his career is being written in real time, and he's no longer holding the pen. Miles Carter is. He sits upright in 2 amperes, calm as a judge. His laptop glows, with the reflection of headlines already forming. Passenger claims discrimination on sovereign flight. Airline chairman involved in racial profiling incident. Live stream from 30,000 feet breaks the internet. Across the cabin, Emma Rios, the young woman from 3 amperes who first spoke up, leans toward her phone. Her live stream count reads, 92,000 watching and climbing. She whispers, he hasn't said anything in 10 minutes. He's just waiting. Someone in her chat types, he's letting them sweat. That's power. Miles turns his head slightly toward her voice. Miss Rios, would you mind streaming something for me? Emma nearly drops her phone. You know my name? You said it during boarding when you asked about overhead bin space, he says evenly. Would you please switch your camera to the main cabin view? I want transparency. She swallows hard and flips her phone. Done. Miles nods once, then presses the intercom button on his armrest. Captain Ames, may I address the passengers? There's a pause, a long one. Then the captain's weary voice. Go ahead, Mr. Carter. Every head turns toward first class. Even those in economy hush. Miles stands, smooth and deliberate. Ladies and gentlemen, he begins, voice carrying, like silk, over metal. I apologize for the disruption earlier. I'd like to explain why it happened and why it matters. Jessica's knuckles whiten on her folded hands. I am, he continues, Miles Carter, chairman of the board for Sovereign Airlines Holdings, the parent company that owns this carrier, this aircraft, and the brand name printed on your tickets. A gasp ripples from row to row. Someone mutters, Holy, he wasn't kidding. I didn't board as the chairman, Miles says. I boarded as a customer. No entourage, no notice, no title, just a man with a ticket. He pauses, scanning faces, fear, awe, guilt, curiosity. In the past year, I've received dozens of reports about passengers, mostly Black, Hispanic, or Muslim, being questioned, downgraded, or removed from premium cabins without cause. I wanted to see if the pattern was real. Jessica's breath comes out in broken syllables. You set us up? No, Miles corrects softly. I gave you an opportunity to prove the complaints wrong. Phones catch every word, transmitting it live to hundreds of thousands now. He gestures to the two officers seated mid-cabin. You followed protocol. You responded to a call. You asked questions. I respect that. Then he turns back to Jessica. But you didn't ask questions, did you? Her lips tremble. I was following procedure. Whose procedure, he asks. The one written in the manual or the one written in your assumptions? She doesn't answer. The silence becomes confession. Miles paces slowly in the narrow aisle. The reason I'm standing here isn't anger, it's clarity. Bias doesn't announce itself. It smiles. It uses words like policy and protocol. It asks for ID it doesn't really need. It suggests that people don't look the part. And it does all that while believing it's being professional. Jessica's eyes well up. Please, sir. I didn't mean... He stops. Intent doesn't erase impact. Behind him, Emma's live stream chat explodes with hearts and crying emojis. Someone types, he's preaching without preaching. Miles opens his laptop again. The cabin lights dim slightly as the screen reflects blue across his face. He taps a key, and the tablet syncs to the in-flight display screens. Every monitor in the cabin flickers, ads disappear, replaced by the Sovereign Airlines logo. Then, live video feed. A conference room filled with executives. Gasps echo down the aisle. Good afternoon, a woman's voice says through the speakers. This is Patricia Watkins, Senior Vice President of Operations. We are broadcasting from corporate headquarters in Dallas. Mr. Carter, we can see and hear you. Good, Miles replies, eyes never leaving Jessica's. I want you to see them too. Passengers crane their necks, faces lit by the cold glow of corporate lighting. 10 executives in suits stare back from the screens real time, unfiltered. Patricia's tone is carefully neutral. We're deeply concerned about this incident. Legal, PR, and compliance are all online. Miles addresses her directly. How many active discrimination complaints did we receive last quarter, Patricia? She glances down. Uncomfortable. 47. And how many involved frontline staff questioning the legitimacy of Black passengers in premium cabins? A longer pause. 43. The cabin murmurs like a storm breaking. Miles nods. 43. I wanted to confirm the number before we continue. Jessica covers her mouth, shaking her head. Oh, God. Miles turns the screen toward her, letting the entire cabin and the live stream audience see her reflection caught in the camera. Miss Martinez, would you please tell our board what you told me earlier? Her eyes dart to the captain, but he's silent, defeated. I said some people game the system, she whispers. Miles tilts his head. And who did you mean by some people? Tears spill down her cheeks. I don't know. I didn't mean you. I swear. You meant people who don't look like they can afford to sit next to you, Miles says quietly. Let's call it what it is. A beat of silence, heavy enough to bruise. Patricia's voice cuts through. Mr. Carter, how would you like to proceed? Miles inhales slowly, then looks down the aisle. With transparency. He presses another key, and a second document appears on every screen, an internal email chain. The subject line reads, Passenger Complaints Optics Management Strategy. Patricia stiffens. Mr. Carter, that's confidential. Not anymore, he says. He scrolls through lines of text visible to everyone. Minimize press exposure. Reclassify bias incidents as customer misunderstandings. Recommend retraining over disciplinary action to avoid media escalation. A collective gasp ripples through the cabin. Miles's voice remains steady. This is how corporations bury discrimination by renaming it. Jessica whispers, Please stop. Miles looks at her, not unkindly. No, Miss Martinez. This is where we start. He looks back at the camera. Effective immediately, I'm grounding Flight 227 upon arrival in Phoenix. The crew will not operate another flight until we complete a full internal review. And this time, the review won't be quiet. Patricia leans forward. Miles, let's discuss this privately. He cuts her off. No. Privately is how it keeps happening. The passengers break into scattered applause, hesitant at first, then stronger. Cameras capture tears. Shock. Relief. Emma's live stream hits 120,000 viewers. Miles lowers his voice. Patricia, prepare a press release. The title will read, Sovereign Airlines launches comprehensive bias reform following chairman's personal investigation. Include a commitment to full transparency, third-party audits, and immediate retraining across all divisions. Yes, sir, she says, subdued. Miles ends the call. The screens go dark, leaving only the quiet hum of the engines and the pulse of conscience in the air. He turns to the cabin one last time. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for what you witnessed, but I also thank you. You didn't just see an incident. You saw a reckoning. He looks at Jessica. And you, Miss Martinez, you're going to help fix it. Her voice trembles. How? You'll speak publicly, Miles says, not as a villain, but as proof that accountability can coexist with redemption. Tears roll down her face, but she nods. He sits again, the weight of command folding back into composure. Captain Ames, he says, resume course to Phoenix. Ames's voice crackles through the intercom. Yes, sir. As the plane banks westward, the sun pours through the windows like absolution. Phones keep recording. But now there's a different energy. A strange mixture of awe and hope. Somewhere in the middle rows, a passenger whispers, We just watched justice happen in real time. Miles doesn't react. He just closes his laptop, glances once more at his watch, and murmurs under his breath, 2 minutes until the world changes. And for the first time since the chaos began, the cabin exhales quietly, collectively, as if the whole sky has forgiven itself. By the time Flight 227 begins its descent into Phoenix, the sky outside looks bruised amber at the edges, violet underneath, like the world itself is processing what just happened 30,000 feet above it. Inside the plane, no one's talking loudly anymore. The nervous laughter is gone. The hum of the engines feels like background music for a documentary nobody expected to star in. Captain Ames's voice drifts through the intercom, measured and weary. Ladies and gentlemen, We'll begin our initial descent shortly. Please remain seated. He doesn't sound like a captain. He sounds like a man rehearsing an apology. Jessica Martinez sits across from Miles in 2B, her hands locked together so tightly that her knuckles look colorless. The makeup around her eyes has blurred into salt and mascara. Every so often, she opens her mouth to speak, but stops before the first syllable forms. Miles closes his laptop. The glow fades from his face, but not the authority. Miss Martinez, he says softly. Do you understand why this happened? Her voice is faint. Because I misjudged you. That's not the reason, he replies. That's the symptom. He lets that settle. The passengers nearby lean in, pretending not to listen but hanging on every word. The reason, he continues, is that our industry teaches comfort first, compassion second. We train for safety, for timing, for efficiency, but not for dignity. Jessica's eyes flick up, wet but focused now. I've never seen anyone talk like this on a plane, she whispers. Maybe it's time someone did. A chime interrupts the intercom light. Captain Ames's voice again, quieter, almost private. Mr. Carter, Ops Control requests you in the cockpit once we land. Media are waiting at the gate. CNN, ABC, BBC, half the alphabet. Understood, Miles says. Then, after a pause, how are you holding up, Captain? A sigh through static. I'll be honest, sir. I don't know what I am right now. Miles nods as if the man can see him. Good. Doubt means you're starting to see. The signal clicks off. The plane dips slightly. The lights flicker to a soft, orange glow. Emma in 3 amperes keeps her phone low this time, her live stream turned off out of respect. She just watches the kind of watching people do when they realize they're in the presence of something that will end up in textbooks. Jessica finally exhales. Sir, what happens to me when we land? Miles studies her, not unkindly. That depends. Do you want punishment or redemption? Her answer comes as a whisper. Redemption. Then you'll get the harder path. He opens his briefcase again, revealing a folder labeled Internal Training Initiative, Flight 227 Bias Review. Inside documents, signatures, press release drafts. I'm converting this incident into a mandatory training module for all 48,000 sovereign employees, he says. You and Captain Ames will be its lead instructors. Jessica blinks. Instructors? He nods. You'll teach others how bias looks, sounds, and feels, so they recognize it before it happens again. Tears fill her eyes again. You're serious. I don't do performance, he says simply. From the cockpit, the landing gear extends a low mechanical growl. The cabin trembles slightly. Outside the window, the desert spreads wide and endless. Sunlight pouring through thin clouds like gold spilled across glass. Miles glances at his watch. Touchdown in 5. Jessica looks up. 5 minutes? No, he says quietly. 5 minutes. Until accountability. When the wheels hit tarmac, the cabin erupts in that awkward applause travelers give at the end of turbulence. But this time, it's not relief for a smooth landing. It's gratitude for survival of a moral storm. Welcome to Phoenix, Ames announces. His voice shakes once, then steadies. Local time, 4:42 p.m. Please remain seated for an additional announcement from corporate operations. Heads tilt, confused. No one moves. The jet bridge latches. The cabin door opens. But instead of the usual burst of dry heat and recycled airport chatter, authority walks in not in uniforms, but in suits. Patricia Watkins herself steps through first class, followed by 2 HR directors and a man with a Department of Transportation badge. Miles, she says, not Mr. Carter. Miles. The familiarity of fear. He stands. Patricia, let's get this right. Gow. A camera flashes from the doorway, press already outside. Voices echo down the jet bridge. Chairman Carter, is it true you were profiled? Is the crew being terminated? Is the airline facing lawsuits? Miles raises a hand. No statements. Not yet. He looks back at Jessica and Ames. We're walking off together. Ames blinks. Sir? You heard me, Miles says. We walk off this aircraft side by side. The symbol matters. And they do. 3 figures in a single line. One powerful, one guilty, one changed, stepping into the blinding light of flashbulbs and headlines. Outside, microphones swarm. The crowd of reporters surges, but instead of anger, Miles gives them calm. Today, he says to the sea of lenses, you watched a company meet its conscience. We'll let the world decide what happens next, but we'll make sure it never happens again. The cameras explode with flashes. The sound is thunder. Hours later, inside Sovereign's Phoenix Operations Center, the press conference begins. A long table, a dozen cameras, and millions watching live. Miles stands at the podium, flanked by Patricia on one side, and shockingly, Jessica Martinez on the other. Her hair is pulled back, her uniform replaced by a simple navy blouse. No badge, just her name. Captain Ames sits in the front row, expression unreadable. Miles speaks first. Today's incident is not about one flight. It's about a pattern, a culture that confuses appearance with threat. We will change that culture starting now. Patricia steps forward, reading from a printed statement. Effective immediately, Sovereign Airlines will launch the Zero Bias Initiative, a company-wide reform program, including third-party audits, independent oversight, and immediate retraining of all flight crews. In my per second and discerned friend, the cameras flash again. Jessica steps to the mic next. She hesitates, breathes, and says, my name is Jessica Martinez. I was the flight attendant involved in the Flight 227 incident. I made an assumption that could have ruined a man's life. And today, I'm owning that mistake. I'll spend the next year traveling to every hub in our network, teaching what I learned the hard way. That dignity doesn't depend on skin color, and professionalism means treating every passenger like they belong. The room is silent. Then applause starts not from reporters, but from the back row, where employees watching begin to clap. Miles steps beside her again. This isn't forgiveness, he says. It's responsibility. And it's only the beginning. He turns to the press, his tone sharpening. For those asking about lawsuits, there will be none. We'll settle with honesty, not lawyers. Because true reform doesn't start with fear of punishment. It starts with the courage to change. He pauses, scanning the cameras. The line lands. Headlines are born. Later that night, the conference room empties. The building hums with the low buzz of servers and AC. Miles stands by the window, looking down at the tarmac where Flight 227 now sits dark and grounded, an exhibit in corporate history. Captain Ames enters quietly. Sir. Miles turns. Derek, sit. The captain obeys, the exhaustion in his posture heavier than his stripes. I still can't believe it, he murmurs. I've flown for 23 years, and it took one passenger to show me how blind I've been. Everyone. Miles studies him for a moment, then sets a small black box on the table. Inside, a new nameplate. Derek Ames, Director of Training and Culture Reform. Ames stares. You're promoting me? I'm reassigning you, Miles corrects. You'll lead our bias awareness program. You've seen the failure from both sides. That makes you the right teacher. Ames exhales, overwhelmed. I don't deserve this. That's the point, Miles says softly. None of us do, but we still have to earn it. Jessica enters then, holding a folder of new materials, lesson plans, scripts, training videos. Her eyes are tired, but her voice is steady. The first seminar's ready, she says. Detroit Hub, 500 new hires. Miles nods. Good. You'll go together. They exchange a look, something fragile and human. A truce built on truth. Miles moves to the door, then pauses. Derek, Jessica, What happened today will follow you for the rest of your careers. But if you handle it right, it'll follow you as proof that change is possible. He leaves them there, under the humming lights, both of them realizing they've just been given something far heavier than punishment: purpose. By morning, the world has moved, but not moved on. The live stream replay has hit 12 million views across platforms. Hashtags: number flight 227, number zero bias, number belonging takes flight. News anchors dissect the timeline. Civil rights leaders applaud the transparency. Competing airlines quietly schedule emergency diversity reviews. And for the first time in company history, the comment section under Sovereign's official social channels isn't filled with anger. It's filled with hope. That flight changed me. Finally, accountability that doesn't hide behind PR. I'd fly with them again. At headquarters, Miles watches the feeds from his office window. Below him, a new banner is being hung across the front doors. Sovereign Airlines, dignity is our destination. He allows himself a rare smile. About time, he murmurs. Then, as if remembering something unfinished, he opens his laptop and begins typing an internal memo. To all staff, training begins immediately. Compassion is not optional. Assume every seat you serve belongs to someone who could change your company forever. He hits send. Outside, the Phoenix sun rises clean and brutal. The day after a reckoning always does. 6 months later, the world still remembers. Flight 227. The footage plays in training rooms, on college campuses, in human resources seminars. The sentence, "He is the airline," has become a kind of cultural shorthand for moral authority disguised as calm. The reforms Miles ordered that day reshaped everything. Every sovereign flight now begins with a new line in the safety briefing. We are committed to treating every passenger with dignity and respect. It's short, rehearsed, almost forgettable until you realize what it cost to write it. Jessica Martinez stands at the front of a crowded auditorium in Detroit, holding a microphone instead of a coffee pot. Behind her, a screen displays the words, "Zero Bias Initiative." 500 new hires watch her, wide-eyed, expecting a corporate lecture. What they get instead is a confession. "I was that flight attendant," she begins, her voice steady. "I thought professionalism meant control, that it meant knowing who belonged where. Then I met a man in seat 2 amperes who taught me what professionalism really means, seeing people as human before you see them as passengers." The room is silent. You can feel the gravity of a lesson paid for in humiliation. She shows a short clip from the live stream. Her own face, caught mid-sentence, mid-bias. Nobody looks away. When the lights come back on, she doesn't ask for forgiveness. She asks for vigilance. "You don't fix a system by pretending it isn't broken," she says. "You fix it by telling the truth until the truth stops hurting." At the back of the room, Captain Derek Ames watches, hands folded, pride hidden behind exhaustion. When she finishes, he steps to the stage. "I used to think my job was to keep planes steady," he tells the recruits. "Turns out, it's to keep people steady too." Afterward, they sit together in the quiet corner of the terminal. Jessica stares out at the runway lights. "Do you think people will ever stop recognizing us?" she asks. Ames shrugs. "Maybe. Or maybe they'll remember us for the right reason someday." Her phone buzzes with a message from Miles Carter. "Detroit numbers came in 0 passenger complaints this quarter. Keep going." She smiles. Just a little, thousands of miles away, in a dim office overlooking the Phoenix skyline, Miles works late. The walls are lined with framed letters from passengers. Stories of changed behavior. Moments of courage. He reads one aloud. "Dear Mr. Carter, I'm white, 43, and I used to stay quiet when I saw things like what happened on your flight. Last week I didn't. I spoke up. They listened. Thank you for showing us how." He sets the letter down, staring at it for a long time. The night outside his window is cut, with faint trails of departing aircraft, each blinking light a reminder that thousands of stories are happening at once and maybe, just maybe, a few of them will end better now. His phone vibrates. A new message from Jessica. Chicago training tomorrow. Still nervous. Still worth it. Another from Ames. My son's coming with me to speak in Dallas. He says he wants to be a pilot. Says he wants to do it right. Miles exhales. That's the point, he whispers to the empty room. He opens a document titled Reflections from St. 2 Amperes and begins typing the closing paragraph. 6 months ago, I boarded a plane to test a theory that prejudice hides best behind politeness. I was right. But I also learned that accountability, once seen, can't be unseen. Justice doesn't live in courtrooms. It lives in choices, repeated quietly every day by people who decide to do better. He saves the file, leans back, and watches another sovereign jet lift into the night. Somewhere on that flight, a flight attendant smiles at a passenger without suspicion. Somewhere, a captain listens before reacting. Somewhere, someone records fairness instead of outrage. For the first time since Flight 227, Miles allows himself to feel something lighter than authority peace. He closes his laptop, turns off the office light, and stands by the window until the plane disappears into the dark. The reflection staring back at him is not a chairman, not a headline, just a man who refused to stay silent when silence was easy. Outside, another aircraft takes off, its wings catching the first pale edge of morning. And in that flicker of light, you can almost believe the sky itself remembers what justice looks like.